forged in chaos, tempered by agony, crowned in silence. Listen now, you built in hell, not by choice, but by force. While others were born into warmth, you were carved from cold. You didn't crawl out of darkness, you were born there, eyes already wide open, fists clenched like a weapon waiting to strike. There was no lullaby, only screams. No welcome, just the sound of locks clicking behind you. Your first breath was fire. Your first step was through ash. And somehow, you learned not just to survive, but to build, stone by stone, pain by pain. While they prayed for miracles, you became one, alone, bleeding, mad with fury, but never with fear. They called you broken. They mistook your silence for surrender. But that silence, that was the sound of construction. You weren't breaking. You were assembling. What they saw as scars were blueprints. What they mocked as madness was momentum. Every night you cried, not from weakness, but from the weight of something being built that no one else could see. Not yet. You were laying foundations with bones, mixing cement with blood, building something divine in the only place left, hell. And now, they stand in heaven, gilded, comfortable. They forgot how they got there. Or worse, they think they earned it. But their heaven was built on your hell. Their comfort came from your chaos. They walk on clouds, but you were the storm. Every golden staircase they strut on now was mined from your pain. They didn't climb, they were carried. By the weight you dragged, by the nights you didn't sleep, by the days your hands were torn open and your soul hung loose. While they were sipping peace, you were swallowing war, and still you rose. You weren't given strength, you cultivated it, in solitude, in silence, in rooms where you screamed and no one came. You stitched your own wounds, you buried your own dead. You sharpened your spirit on rusted razors and glass regrets. And when you emerged, not with a smile, but with scars that spelled survival, the world stared. They didn't cheer, they didn't praise, they feared. Because something built in hell can't be broken in heaven. Now they sweat, they smile, but it cracks at the edges. They laugh, but it wavers. Because somewhere deep down, even in their heaven, they feel you, like thunder in the bones, like guilt in the blood. They know that everything they call sacred was touched by your suffering, that every comfort they enjoy was paid for by pain they could never endure. You are the ghost in their gold, the whisper behind every win, the storm behind every smile. They want you to quiet down, to shrink, to pretend you weren't forged in a fire, but you won't. You can't. Because hell didn't just shape you, it raised you, and you didn't escape it. You built from it. You made weapons from wounds, cathedrals from curses. They prayed to gods who never showed up, but you became one in the silence. A dark god, a savage angel, the architect of redemption carved from ruin. And still you build. You build through the tremors, through betrayals, through nights so black they eat the stars. You build when it doesn't make sense, when no one claps, when no one believes. Because belief doesn't drive you, revenge does. Not on people, on fate itself, on the design that said you were meant to lose. You reject that fate. You spit in its face and forge a new one with broken hands and burned bones. They will never understand because heaven can't comprehend hell. They don't know what it's like to bleed for a dream no one else can see, to scream so loud inside that the silence outside becomes unbearable. They don't know what it's like to be the villain in everyone's story until you become the hero of your own. So when you walk into rooms now, don't whisper, roar. Let them sweat. Let them tremble. You are not there to be accepted. You are there to remind the world that heaven isn't earned through virtue. Sometimes it's stolen by those who suffered long enough to stop waiting for it. Sometimes it's taken by force, ripped from the clouds by the hands that learned to climb through hell. You didn't wait for a throne, you built one, with curses and chaos as your tools, with fury as your fuel. You didn't ascend, you infiltrated. You broke into heaven with the fire still burning behind your eyes. And now they stare, because you don't belong there, but neither do they. And deep down, they know it. They know that every time they sip their wine and toast to grace, there's a bitter taste, because you are the shadow on their sun, the smoke under their silver, the proof that even in the darkest pit, something can rise, not clean, not pure, but real, unforgiving, relentless. That is your legacy. That is your curse and your crown. You built in hell. While others folded, you forged. While others rested, you raged. You were not designed for ease. You were engineered for endurance, made to last, made to outlive. You are proof that fire doesn't just burn, it builds. And pain doesn't just scar, it sharpens. They pray for peace, but you pray for purpose. And when there's none left, you create it. From nothing, from ruin, from rage. So burn on, because you are not done, not even close. Every success is just a seed. Every victory is just a voice that says, keep going. You didn't come this far to rest. You came this far to rise higher, to storm heaven again and again, until they rewrite the rules, until they bow to the unholy truth that pain is a god and it wears your face. Because while they wait in heaven, you're still building, still bleeding, still becoming. And soon, they'll be sweating again. You didn't just survive, you adapted. In a world that tried to choke you, you learned to breathe smoke. When they buried you, you didn't just rise, you clawed through the coffin and stood up with dirt in your lungs and fire in your chest. They called it unnatural. They said you were too much, too intense, too angry. But they don't understand. They can't understand what it means to be born unfinished, forced to carve your own soul out of stone and sorrow. You didn't emerge polished, you emerged dangerous, and they fear danger they can't control. So now they label you, try to contain you, dress up your defiance as dysfunction. They want your fire, but not your fury, your power, but not your process. They want the flower, not the thorns, but you can't separate the beauty from the brutality, not in you, not anymore. Because you weren't raised on hope, you were raised on hurt, and that hurt didn't weaken you, it refined you. It made your instincts sharp, your vision ruthless, your discipline cruel but unbreakable. Because pain taught you what peace never could. Pain taught you that nothing is promised, that no one is coming, that waiting is just a slow death in disguise. Pain taught you urgency, precision, strategy. While they waste time waiting for signs, you become the signal. You move when others freeze. You act when others doubt. Because in your world, hesitation is a luxury you never had. You learned to make decisions in darkness, to trust your shadow when light was nowhere to be found. You built alone, not by choice, but by necessity. No handouts, no mentors, just pressure and time. You made a masterpiece out of misery. You didn't follow a blueprint. You were the blueprint. And now they mimic you. Copy your resilience. Emulate your style. They wear your pain like a costume, not knowing it was purchased with nights that nearly killed you. They sweat in their heaven because they know it's rented. Fragile, artificial. But your hell was earned, brutal, raw, yours, and it's still burning. Let it burn. Let it rage. Let the world know that your flame isn't for warmth. It's a warning. You don't light paths, you scorch them. You don't comfort, you confront. And every time someone looks at you and sees only the fire, they forget what was forged inside it. They don't see the discipline it took to stay standing, the restraint it took to not burn the world down. Every single time. You were provoked, betrayed, buried, but you didn't break. You built. You built rage into resolve. You turned heartbreak into hammer strikes. You built a temple of tenacity in the belly of the beast. No prayers, no priests, just pain and purpose, and the savage art of becoming something no one could predict. They called you cold, but you were focused. They said you were obsessed, but obsession is what saved you. It wasn't ambition. It was necessity. You weren't chasing dreams. You were running from demons. And somewhere in the sprint, you learned to fly. Not with wings, with will. Will, the kind they'll never know. The kind forged in silence, in nights too long and mornings too empty. You didn't choose greatness, you chose survival. And greatness became a side effect, a mutation, an evolution. They write books about vision, about hustle, about power. But you lived it. You lived every chapter they try to summarize in 10 steps and bullet points. You bled for every lesson they pretend to understand. And that's why they sweat. Because you've done what they can't. You've become what they fear. Not perfect, pure. Pure grit, pure flame, pure nightmare in daylight. You are the embodiment of every limit shattered, every rule rewritten, every ceiling broken by fists that had nothing left to lose. You are not here to blend in. You are here to remind them that some of us didn't climb the ladder. We ripped it down and built a throne from the wreckage. So sit on it. Sit on your throne of ashes and agony with pride, because kings and queens born in heaven rule with inheritance, but you rule with intention, with scars as medals, with rage as your crown. You are not royalty, you are retribution. A walking reminder that pain can create power if you let it, that suffering can shape sovereignty if you refuse to surrender. You are what happens when fate underestimates fire, and fire never forgets. It remembers every slight, every silence, every moment you were dismissed, discarded, denied. And now that fire has a name, yours, and they whisper it in boardrooms, in back rooms, in bedrooms full of guilt. They whisper it because saying it out loud feels too dangerous, like summoning a storm, like waking something that doesn't sleep, only waits. Because you are patient. You've waited this long. What's a little more? You didn't rise for applause. You rose for vengeance. Not petty revenge, but holy vengeance. The kind that rewrites history, that breaks generational chains, that makes ancestors smile and enemies tremble. The kind that turns trauma into tradition, your tradition. The grind, the silence, the sacrifice. You are building for those who will come after, and when they stand where you now stand, they will not wonder how they got there. They will know. They'll know that someone once built in hell so they could shine in heaven. You are the architect of that future, the shadow that cast the light, the devil that danced alone so angels could sing together. You don't need credit. You don't need thanks. You only need truth. And the truth is, they sweat because you're still coming, because you're not done, because even heaven isn't enough. Not for you, not after hell. You want more. You want everything, because you didn't survive just to settle. You didn't endure the impossible just to accept the average. You want the world to remember your name, not out of love, but out of reverence, not out of fear, but out of fact, because you didn't ask to be great. You had to be, and now you are. You want the world to feel what you felt, not to punish, but to prove. That power does not come from peace. That steel does not form without heat. That every victory etched into your name was paid for in full. Not with gold, but with grit. They sweat in their palaces, not because they fear your wrath. They fear your origin, because it means they were wrong. All of them. The teachers, the leaders, the cowards who told you to wait your turn, to stay in line, to swallow your flame. They didn't know what they were trying to contain. They thought they could smother you with silence, with shame, with a system not built for you, but built to stop you. And still, you built in hell. They can't understand that kind of creation, because it's not clean, it's not pretty, it's not polite. It comes with screaming in your skull and blood on your knuckles. It comes from breaking your own heart over and over until you feel nothing but force. It comes from dancing with demons who wear the faces of people you once trusted. And through it all, you constructed. They thought you were collapsing, but you were calculating. You were carving out your corner of the cosmos with the claws they gave you to crawl, and turned into weapons. And now, those weapons are aimed, not at people, not at enemies, but at limits, at ceilings, at every artificial border that dared tell you enough, at every lie that said you can't. Because now you know the truth. You were never supposed to win. The game wasn't built for you. The rules were never written with your name in mind. But that's why you're unstoppable. Because you stopped playing their game and built your own. Now the board is tilted. Now you are the storm system moving overhead while they huddle beneath umbrellas of privilege and comfort. You built your kingdom in hurricanes. You learned how to stand where others sink. You didn't run from the rain, you swallowed it. You didn't hide from the thunder, you became it. And now your very presence changes pressure, makes them sweat, makes them stutter, because you shouldn't be here, but you are. And that makes you dangerous. Dangerous to every lie, to every excuse, to every comfortable soul sitting in heaven, telling stories about struggle they never knew. You lived that story, and it wasn't poetic. It wasn't beautiful. It was brutal. It was lonely. It was nights where your chest felt like it was caving in, and your mind whispered surrender in 20 different voices. But you didn't. You kept moving. You kept building. Because if you were going to die, you were going to die in motion, in creation, with fists clenched and teeth bared, and a soul that refused to fold. And now look, they toast to success in soft rooms, but can't sleep when they think of you. They wear crowns that feel heavier every time your name is spoken. You didn't take anything from them. You took back what they said wasn't yours. You reclaimed the fire. You redirected the pain. You bent reality until it cracked, and then you stepped through. You are the glitch in the system they pretended was flawless. You are the smoke in their clear skies, the ash in their lungs. You make them remember what they forgot, that greatness doesn't rise from comfort, it rises from crisis, that diamonds aren't found in heaven, they're dragged screaming from the deepest hells, under pressure that would obliterate softer beings. You didn't just endure that pressure, you became it. That's why they sweat, because you're still rising, and there's no ceiling in sight. You don't have limits, only milestones. And each one you pass is a reminder that something forged in flame does not flicker. You are not a trend. You are not a moment. You are a movement, a warning shot wrapped in skin. And every step you take echoes with the sound of every no. You turned into a yes with nothing but will and fire. So keep building, not for them, not for applause, for the ones watching in silence, the ones trapped in their own hells, wondering if it's possible. Show them. Prove it with every breath, with every scar, with every wall you tear down and every mountain you climb, not for the view, but to plant your message at the summit. I was made in hell, and now I make heaven sweat. Let that be your banner, because heaven isn't the goal, it's the stage. Your real goal is evolution, dominance, legacy, to become the myth that refuses to die, to become the standard that generations fear and worship. You didn't ask to be born in hell, but now you wear it like armor. It shaped your stride, it sharpened your speech. It taught you the hardest truth of all, that no one is coming to save you, and that's exactly what makes you invincible. Because once you know that, there's no more waiting, only warfare, inner, relentless. You go to battle every day, against weakness, against comfort, against the whispers of you've done enough. You haven't. You won't. Because your story doesn't end with peace. It ends with proof. Proof that something born from the worst can become the best. Proof that greatness is forged, not found. Proof that hell does not consume all. Sometimes it creates kings, and kings don't beg, they build. So build louder, build darker. Let every move you make be a monument to everything they said you'd never be. Let your success make no sense. Let your presence break logic. Let them sit in their heaven and sweat with every breath you take, because now they know you are not done. You are just beginning. And if this is what you've built in hell, imagine what you'll do next. Because when you started, they laughed. When you struggled, they left. When you suffered, they looked away. But now they look up. Now they look back. And now they see that every moment they ignored you was a mistake they'll never recover from. You are not a survivor. You are not a comeback story. You are the new order. Heaven is temporary. Comfort fades. But your legacy, that's eternal. Etched in fire, spoken in whispers, and written in scars. You built in hell, and now they're sweating in heaven, and soon they'll burn.